familiar with the phrase, "a picture is worth 1,000 words." But when it comes to the world of television, they can be worth a lot more, since viewers can debate forever about the meaning behind every line of dialogue and every minor background prop. To casual viewers, it may seem fanatical to focus on trivial elements like this rather than the actual plot. Who cares what a random poster says? Why does it matter what a background extra is doing? But by overanalyzing every frame of a sitcom or drama, you can stumble upon something that other viewers missed. We're not talking about Easter eggs or cameos. If you're paying attention, you can spot a secret storyline. The second episode of WandaVision implies there's a dead body hidden in the house. In Community, Abed helped deliver a child without his friends noticing. There's more than enough evidence to prove Rick and Morty and Gravity Falls take place in the same reality. Even though a lot of these unspoken plots will never be resolved, especially if the show has been finished for decades, it won't stop viewers from discussing them until the end of days. So with that in mind then, I'm Ellie with What Culture, and here are 10 greatest unspoken TV plot points. Number 10. Marie nearly gets Skyler arrested in Breaking Bad. Every episode of Breaking Bad developed the overarching story as well as each of the main players. Even though there was a lot of plot threads, the show made a special effort to tie up every loose end, no matter how minor. Except one. While Skyler is having a baby shower in season 1, her sister Marie gifts her with a tiara for her nephew-to-be. When Skyler tries to return the present to the store, she learns the tiara was stolen. Although Skyler tries to tell the staff that her sister was the one who took the tiara, they attempt to detain her. Fortunately, Skyler manages to leave by pretending she's going into labour. Now, anyone would assume Marie's kleptomania would serve as a source of contention between her and her sister later in the series. But that's not the case. Even though Marie's illegal activities nearly resulted in her heavily pregnant sister getting arrested, the two never discuss the matter. In Skyler's defence, she's had to deal with the revelation that her dying husband is a drug lord, so she probably doesn't have time for a sibling rivalry. Nevertheless, it's odd why this issue was implied if the writers had no intention of following through with it. Number 9. The demons taking part in Michael's experiment in The Good Place. Before I go any further, major spoiler warning ahead, so you have been warned. In The Good Place, a demon called Michael has grown bored of torturing souls in hell, or the bad place, and so looks to make some drastic changes. Believing it would be more enjoyable to torment his victims psychologically rather than physically, Michael constructs a fake reality and convinces 4 damned souls, Eleanor, Chidi, Tahani and Jason, that it's heaven, or the good place. To make this reality more believable, Michael has hundreds of demons posing as good-natured, sin-free souls. But after Eleanor realises they're in the bad place, Michael is forced to restart the experiment. Because Eleanor's gang keeps finding out the truth, Michael ends up rebooting the whole thing 802 times. This means that the demons populating this afterlife were forced to take part in Michael's scheme for years, possibly decades. So what was that like? What did they do when Eleanor's gang weren't around? How bored must they have been performing the same lines for years? Did some of them rebel? Did any of them mess up their lines or break character while in Eleanor's presence? There are so many hilarious scenarios that must have happened to the demons. It could fill up a whole spin-off. Number 8. Seven became a missing child in Married with Children. In season 7 of Married with Children, Peggy's cousin drops off her son Seven, forcing the Bundys to take him in. This decision was made by the studio in a vain attempt to spice up the drama, but since the comedic banter between the main cast was set in stone by this point, Seven felt out of place in every scene. Almost immediately, this cute little kid became the most hated character on the show. When the creators realised they were on the verge of jumping the shark, they wisely decided to remove the character in the following season. Due to his disappearance, fans naturally assumed Seven was reunited with Peggy's cousin. But in Series 8, Episode 22, Ride Scare, Seven's face appears on the Bundys' milk carton with the words "missing" written above it. Sadly, the Bundys don't notice or care, so Seven's disappearance is never officially addressed. So what happened? Was he kicked out? Did he go back to his parents and they left him again? Did he run away? Was he ever found? If Married with Children wasn't abruptly cancelled, maybe some of these questions would have been answered. Number 7. The connection with Gravity Falls in Rick and Morty. Rick and Morty creator Justin Roiland and Gravity Falls creator Alex Hirsch are the best of friends. Because both cartoons have similar characters, plots, and humour, Roiland thought it would be funny to incorporate elements from Hirsch's work and vice versa. Throughout Rick and Morty, you can see Dipper's 3 journal, Bill's cipher, the talking chair that Ford encountered, and alternate reality Mortys who were modelled off Dipper and Mabel. Now, just because elements from one show appear in another doesn't necessarily mean they're connected. Nods like this are usually throwaway gags that shouldn't be considered canon. But since Roiland and Hirsch are so tight, it's safe to assume the Gravity Falls gang do exist in the Rick and Morty multiverse and are more connected than they seem. Ford's journal contains a silhouette of a Zygerian, which Rick encountered when he met Prince Nebulon, implying the two scientists have mutual acquaintances as well as mutual enemies. Because Ford is a super genius who spent years hopping through different realities, it's feasible he and Rick are aware of each other. Although the references to Gravity Falls are appreciated, we're hoping the characters are officially acknowledged in the future. Number 6. Fatherhood on Mandalore in The Mandalorian. In The Mandalorian, bounty hunter Din Djarin is tasked with locating and eliminating a specific target. When he learns his target is an orphaned child, he abandons his mission and decides to care for the youngster. Because the child, Grogu, is highly desirable due to his force powers, Din finds himself being hunted by assassins, former imperialists, and his own friends. At first it seems obvious why Din refused to kill Grogu. Being an orphan himself, he had an immediate bond with the child, causing him to develop a father-son relationship with him. But that's not the only reason. On Mandalore, the father acts as the central parent, not the mother. This notion is so prominent in Mandalorian culture, adult males with no children are pushed to adopt foundlings. If a father does not care for their child, they are seen as a traitor and a coward to their kin. This concept is implied throughout the series, which is why the other Mandalorians accept Din's decision to care for the foundling, but it's never outright discussed. Hopefully this aspect of Mandalorian culture will be looked at eventually, allowing us to gain further insight into Din's people. Number 5. The weapon builders sent into the past in Terminator: The Sarah Connor Chronicles. Even though Terminator: The Sarah Connor Chronicles had many intricate storylines, one of the best plot points is referenced in the pilot episode. But since it's only touched upon briefly, most viewers don't comprehend the significance of it. After John Connor is rescued by a reprogrammed T-900 called Cameron, they track down an isotope gun and time machine hidden in a safe vault. When John is asked if the machines are from the future, Cameron reminds him that inorganic matter cannot time travel. To get around this, the Resistance sent an engineer to the 1960s to construct the isotope gun and time machine. Because technology was so primitive back then, the engineer would have spent decades scouring the planet looking for every piece of equipment to ensure the gun and time machine were operational. As fascinating as the engineer's life must have been, we never learn anything else about him. We don't even know what his name is. It would have been amazing to have at least one episode revolving around the enigmatic engineer who gave up his entire life and willingly died in a timeline that wasn't his for the greater good. Number 4. Stan Lee worked for the TVA in Loki. In the Loki pilot, the titular character is arrested by the Time Variance Authority and transported to a reality that exists outside time and space. The TVA explained to Loki that they arrested him after he inadvertently created a time paradox. While Tom Hiddleston's character is transported to the Time Court, there is a mural in the background depicting multiple TVA agents. If you're an eagle-eyed viewer, you would have noticed the man in the forefront of this picture is none other than Stan Lee. Being the co-creator of Marvel Comics, Stan the Man has popped up in some way or another in nearly every adaptation of his work. At a glance, casual viewers probably assumed this image was simply a nice way to commemorate the Generalissimo's work. But as we know from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, all the characters that Lee has portrayed in the Marvel Cinematic Universe are the same person. If that's the case, his visage on this mural isn't just an in-joke, it confirms Stan Lee was and perhaps still is an active member of the TVA. Number 3. Abed and the Pregnant Woman in Community. Even though the Beetlejuice references are the most famous background joke in Community, there's another hidden gag with a better payoff that most viewers missed. In Series 2, Episode 22, Applied Anthropology and Culinary Arts, Abed Nadir casually mentions how he once delivered a baby in the back of a car. Upon hearing this, the majority of fans were worried they may have missed an episode, but if you were paying attention, you would have seen this moment had already played out. In Series 1, Episode 11, The Politics of Human Sexuality, there is a scene where a young couple discards a condom. In Series 2, Episode 3, The Psychology of Letting Go, Abed constantly appears in the background helping out this same couple, with the woman now heavily pregnant. Throughout the episode, you can see Abed speaking to the pregnant woman, checking her belly, arguing with her partner, helping her out of a restaurant after her waters break, and delivering the baby in the back of a car. When Shirley sees Abed at the end of the episode and asks what he's been up to, he modestly responds with, "Not much." Number 2. Did Scarlet Witch kill someone in WandaVision? No property does Easter eggs like Marvel. Since the Marvel Cinematic Universe is based on a 60-year-old comic series, every film and TV show is overstuffed with references to the source material, and Disney Plus's WandaVision is no exception. The Bova milk commercial makes a reference to Wanda's carer in the comics when she was a baby. The White Vision is a nod to how the character was supposed to look when he debuted. In-jokes like this can be regarded as harmless fan service and shouldn't be overanalyzed to death. But there are some subtle details which allude to something far more sinister. In the intro to the second episode, a helmet and bones can be seen hidden under Wanda's floorboards. Any casual Marvel reader who spotted this will recognise this headgear belongs to the supervillain the Grim Reaper. If you're up to date with your comic lore, you'll know that Vision's wife in the comics, a synthetic being called Virginia, murdered the Grim Reaper and buried the scythe-wielding criminal in the backyard. So what does this mean? Did Scarlet Witch murder Reaper to maintain her family? Did Vision kill him? Now, it's totally possible this blink and you'll miss it moment was just a visual gag. But as we all know, the MCU has a habit of making seemingly innocuous references that pay off years later. Number 1. Anything to do with Creed Bratton in The Office. In many ways, Creed Bratton is the most fascinating character in The Office, despite the fact almost nothing is known about him. Even though he's been an employee at Dunder Mifflin longer than anybody, no one knows what he does at the company, including himself. Every time it looks like we're about to learn some fascinating aspect of his life, the scene cuts away, forcing viewers to eternally speculate about the goings-on of Creed Bratton. Each time there is mention of the police, he becomes unmistakably nervous, implying he committed some heinous crime or he's a fugitive. One time he showed up to work caked in blood, but nobody noticed since it was Halloween. He's made outlandish claims suggesting he's been homeless, incarcerated, been involved in multiple cults, was raised in an iron lung, and killed a man called Creed Bratton before stealing his identity. But because of his atrocious memory and possible psychosis, it's impossible to tell if what he says is true or not. Even though Creed's exploits would probably be too zany for the show, you always want to know more about his personal life.